such a genuine gem. Thank you for clicking on my video. I'm Brooke Makenna, and that was very weird to say without saying Wicked Winter series. If you didn't know, I posted 31 days last month for Wicked Winter in December, so if you've missed any of those, there will be a playlist linked down below. But starting for 2019, I wanted to incorporate more fiction stories also into it, or stories that possibly are true or could be fiction, so like urban legend stories that I found online, because ever since I did The Perfectly Behaved Boy Who Murdered His Parents, which I'll link below if you haven't seen it, it's such an interesting story that made me so intrigued with what other people could come up with, whether that was a true story of his or whether he completely made that up. It was brilliant and deserved to be heard by so many people, because if you like true crime like me and also like the more fiction crime stuff, then you will absolutely love stuff like this. So I'm going to be incorporating more if that's okay with you guys. Not too often. True crime is still going to be the most on this channel, but if you're interested, I'd love to tell more stories like this one today, because this one is about a girl who found a Polaroid picture of her parents and now thinks she should call the police. So let's get into this story, because I haven't read it yet and I'm super intrigued on why she should call the police and if she really should. So let's get started. So it was by Holly Riordan and it was updated November 8th of last year. And it says, I stumbled through the door, half a bottle of vodka sloshing around in my stomach. Somehow I managed to make it past the living room, past the same photographs that have been hanging on the walls since I'd moved into the house, and into my cramped bathroom to remove my contacts. But as I bent over the toilet, pushing back my glasses to keep them from plopping into the water, I realized something. Those pictures. I hung them myself, took some of them myself, looked at them every single day after work or late nights at the bar to remind myself of the family I rarely got to see. After wiping the vomit from my purple painted lips, I retreated to the living room just to prove that I'd been seeing things, that the alcohol had been messing with my mind. But no. When I looked at the 20-year-old family portrait, one of my mom and dad and me, I saw an extra face hovering in between my parents. A face that didn't belong there. He looked like he was around the same age as my dad, with the same red hair and overload of freckles, the same round glasses and the same suit. Even their facial expressions matched. They were completely identical. Effing idiot. I must have been seeing double. I saw 2 door handles on the way inside and 2 toilet rolls in the bathroom. I drank half my body weight in liquor after all. What else should I expect? Without bothering to brush my teeth or slip out of my little red dress, I threw myself on the couch. I needed sleep. The sun greeted me along with a headache, one big enough that no amount of Advil could cure it. It took all of my effort I had to pull myself up in the hopes of making a cup of coffee that tasted as good as my mom used to make. But on my way out of the living room, I paused to look at the picture that had spooked me last night. Or at least, I tried to look at the picture. The damn thing was gone, missing from the frame. There was only plastic and an empty piece of cardboard stuffed inside. The rest of the photos were all intact. I had 15 of them covering the walls in rows of 5. They were all right. No, one of them was different. It was there, but different. It showed me and my cousin sitting around a tree at Christmas. We had a present in our tiny hands while my aunts and uncles were standing behind us, had glasses of eggnog in their hands. But there was an extra face in the photo, a face that looked like my father's. My dad had been around when I was a baby, when we took the family portrait I loved so much, but then he left us for a while. Had a fling with some waitress when I was a toddler and then came crawling back when I was in my teens. I didn't care how long ago that holiday photo was taken or how shoddy the memory was. That was not him. It couldn't have been. No way in hell. But I called my mom to make sure. I asked her if she'd had any contact with Dad during the break, and she went off about how she wouldn't have answered any of his calls even if he would have bothered to make them. She went on and on about what an a-hole he'd been for 20 minutes before I found an opening and told her I'd call her back some other time. They probably fought that night. Because of me. But I would have rather heard their arguing than what I ended up hearing. When it was time to end my day with a bottle of wine that I could have sworn I hadn't opened yet but already had the cork removed, I heard the noises, creaking and squeaking and groaning. Instead of getting up to investigate, my wimpy just pulled the covers closer to my face and forced myself to sleep. In the morning, before I ate breakfast or even checked Facebook, I checked the wall of photographs. The picture from yesterday, the one from Christmas time, was missing. Just an empty frame dangling from a hook. I slid my eyes over to the next photo in line. It was one of me as a preteen with my old terrier at the dog park. We were the only ones, just him with his tongue flopping out, and me with my lips against his furry forehead. I thought it was done, that my mental lapse was over. But then I leaned closer. There actually were more people, the size of pins, bustling around in the background, and right over my shoulder, standing on the grass with a Labrador. This time I called him instead of my mom. I told him he was appearing in my photographs one by one, and he chuckled and made a dad joke about how I was seeing his face everywhere. I went because of how badly I missed him. And then there was another joke about how everyone must have been copying his style because of his incredible fashion sense. When I hung up with him, I felt better, believing his promises about the house being safe and that there must have been a rational explanation for everything. But those promises didn't stop the creaking and squeaking and groaning when I went to bed. 2 weeks. 2 weeks of hearing eerie sounds on my way to bed. 2 weeks of finding my father's face in photographs one day and then finding the picture frame empty the next day. I considered calling the police, but it would have sounded like a ghost story to them. No way they'd believe me. My friends didn't even believe me. I asked my BFF if I could crash at her place or if she'd at least stay at my place to see for herself, but she refused. Told me to lay off the alcohol. That's not a very good friend. So when the very last picture disappeared, I had a panic attack in place of a tequila shot. I felt like the wall was a calendar counting down my last days, and now they were all up. I was so convinced that I would die that I actually thought about searching for more photos just so I could hang them up and buy myself more time. But what was I buying time from? The house didn't want to kill me. My father didn't want to kill me. There must have been a reasonable explanation. But I found none. The night when the walls were empty for the very first time, I heard something different than the usual creaks and squeaks and groans. I heard footsteps, faint ones, leading into my room, and then I heard the door. "Dad?" I whispered. But it couldn't have been him. He was a planner. He would have called me up weeks ahead of time, asked me for help booking his flight, and then asked me to pick him up at the airport. Even if he wanted to surprise me, show up out of the blue, he would have knocked like a normal human being. And not that I believe in the supernatural, but it's not like he was dead, dying, or even sick with a cold, so it couldn't have been a ghost. I saw a face smiling in the slit of light my curtains let in, and it was his face. Paler and thinner, much, much thinner, but it was him. He moved closer with small, tight footsteps, and all I could do was strengthen my grip on the blanket. I'd stuck a knife under my pillow when the first picture fiasco started, but I couldn't find the courage to reach for it. I could only stare. And when he dropped something on me, I flinched. My imagination tricked me into thinking that they were maggots or guts or razor blades. The worse, the more believable. But when I peeked my eyes open, I realized it was only my photos. "I edited them," he said. His voice sounded strained, like a deaf man who paused at the wrong moments. I didn't know how to tell you I was here. I didn't want to scare you. I wanted to give you hints. You always liked hints, whenever we would play. I didn't know if I could speak. I didn't want to try. Do you really think I left you? He was on the edge of my bed now, reaching out to brush a strand of hair out of my face. I flinched, one eye opened and the other closed. "That man," he continued, "the one you spoke to on the phone a few weeks ago, the one that came back for your mother, the one that raised you, that wasn't me. I'm your real father." "Yeah?" I rasped out, finally finding the strength to reach under my pillow and paw for the knife's handle. He nodded. "I was kidnapped. By him. He popped out of the backseat of my car as I was driving home to you 18 years ago, and he kept me locked up, hardly any food, zero social interaction for decades. He said he was my twin, but I don't have a twin. I know I don't have a twin." My fingers brushed up against the blade, sliced my pinky. I don't know where he came from, what created him, but he stole everything. He stole my life and no one even noticed. My fingers finally curled around the knife's handle. I slid it out as slowly as I could to keep him from noticing. But the noises stopped me. Creaking, squeaking, groaning. I was looking right at him, at my supposed birth father. He wasn't the one making noises. At least, not those. "Oh no," he said. "No, no, 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 no." Before I could speak or move or breathe, I heard the door again. A woman walked through this time. My age, my height, my weight, my hair, my eyes, my smile. She looked just like me. Like my twin. And that's where it ends. Oh my gosh. Okay. That was not at all what I was expecting, but I feel like a lot of these, I'm going to say that at the end of it, because these are so creative, and if they're true stories, then so insane. So basically, I don't even know. Do you think they're demons that are coming back to steal their lives and like taking their place in the real world and then killing them? And because how in the world, if it wasn't some sort of like supernatural like demon, how would it look exactly like these people? They can't just have like random twins walking around. Or maybe we all have a twin. I guess we all have doppelgangers, so we could totally all have a twin. But the fact that they would like find them and want to take over their lives like both times, that's a little weird. It makes me think it's some sort of like supernatural thing. And the only way these demons could get their lives is if they killed the real ones. Because if it was just a doppelganger in the real world that came and took your place and like killed you, you wouldn't have the same mannerisms. I feel like people around you would notice that it wasn't exactly you, because they couldn't have mimicked all of that unless they'd been watching you for years, which I guess is a possibility, but I feel like it's more likely that it's some sort of like demon that like took over. I don't know. I hope this is updated soon, because I would love to know what happens if she's actually going to be kidnapped like her father was. But I'm like, I don't even know. There's so many theories that could go into this one. I would love to hear your theories about it down below, and if you want me to do more stories like this. I just find them so intriguing without, you know, giving me a break between researching these super dark, scary cases, to just tell you like a little story like we're around a campfire, or like it's your bedtime and I'm like telling you a good night story. As cheesy as that sounds, I really like it. So let me know if you do too, or I can just stick to true crime, whatever you guys want. And I think that is all. So don't ever forget to speak up. Your voice is powerful enough, and I love you to absolute pieces. Okay, bye.